just to say, to start with, thank you for coming to the Caversham Picture Framer this evening. If this is your first time at an event, or you hadn't heard of us before, it's nice to see you. Please join our newsletter. You can do that with Lydia or with me, and then you'll find out about all of our other events that are coming up. Speaking of which, we have a traditional etching class running here tomorrow, which I'm running. We've still got a few tickets left to sell, so if you're interested in learning about etching, we're going to do an offer for you guys, 10% off on any tickets. We're also running every week life drawing classes on Wednesday evenings. They've been proving very popular. Coming up, our big thing of the year is we're opening a gallery in Henley. That's happening end of June. Spending most of my time doing that. So this particular event is for Jane and Jane's work. A really interesting collection of very vibrant prints. And I think it's probably best just to leave it to Jane to introduce herself and explain more about her practice.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex. Well, I'd just like to echo what Alex said. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming along tonight. It's lovely to see you, old friends and new. And I thought, rather than talking about technique and process, I would like to show you my sketchbooks. I'd like to talk about how I get ideas and what happens to them. And I'd like to talk through some work that I've done. You'll see lots of vibrant colours, but you'll also see repeated motifs, and those are obviously echoed in the prints. I'm very happy at the end, if you want to ask any questions, to talk about how I create the prints. But I think for me, the most important thing is what I do and where I get my ideas from. So I'm going to start from now. I've just come back for a month in New Zealand, and I took with me this sketchbook, and I knew that I wanted to record every day that I was there. And I set myself the task of doing a drawing a day, which I did. If I had all the time in the world and I wasn't with friends or I wasn't on a walking tour, I could have done more, but I was a little bit restricted to doing what I could do when I had the time. And also the materials. What do you take when you go to New Zealand? So I arrived in New Zealand with my sketchbook, and I said to the friend I was staying with in Auckland, I need to go and get some paints or something. And I just bought some felt tip pens that I could work with water and make them into sort of watercolory effects. So every day I went out, and Lizzie was great. She said, "Oh, Janie, do you want to go and do your drawing?" And I said, "Yes, please." So I'd go out, and some are from the back of her house, and some of them are Christchurch Botanic Gardens when I flew down to the South Island, or when I went into the wilderness walking. You know, they're not brilliant drawings. Some of them are very sketchy. Some of them are more detailed. Doesn't matter. It's the fact that I'm drawing what I see, and I'm experiencing that particular moment wherever I am. And the most bizarre comment I had when I was on a walking tour on the South Island, everybody kept saying, "Can we see your drawings? Can we see?" And I said, "I'll show you at the end." So at the end of the trip, we had a WhatsApp group, and I posted some of the drawings. And one of the ladies, an American lady, said to me, "Oh, do you use AI?" No! Why would I use AI? And you can see they sort of get looser. This was when I was in Milford Sound. I was on a boat, and I was with all the waterfalls, and just did, and you know, so you do what you do as you can with the facilities you've got. But what you've got at the end is memories. And yes, I take photographs. Everybody takes photographs. But I can remember the moment I did the drawings. So this was February to March, travelling around New Zealand, and I have no idea what I'm going to do with these. I don't know where they're going. but I do want to sit down and do something with them. And talking with Helen earlier, we were discussing, you know, how you take something that you've done and how you work from it. And I had been to New Zealand 14 years ago, and these were the drawings I did then. And I knew that I wanted to continue. I wanted to go back to the same places, but this time I'd taken watercolours, and it was a very different sort of experience. But you can see the colour. So colour is really important, and I was able to spend a bit more time. And this is Lake Taupo, which is a very beautiful volcanic lake. And I can remember still sitting on that road making that painting. And that's one of the great things about working in a creative field. You have to give it time, and you have to just sit, or whatever you do. You can't rush it, you just got to be with it. And I thought it would be interesting to show you something I did a few years ago. Before I started printmaking, I worked in architectural glass for many years, and I worked with architects, and I worked with interior designers, and this was in the late 90s, and I had a commission for a hospital in Birmingham to produce screens, and so I was painting herbs that are used in healing processes for cancer, because this was a big oncology centre for paediatric patients at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And this is when I first got into using watercolours in my sketchbook, so that's why I wanted to show you these. They're not particularly brilliant paintings, doesn't matter. They are me recording something which I can then use, and as I said, it was a starting point of how to use watercolour in the sketchbook and what I might do with it. And sketchbooks have always been very, very important. I taught for many years in, first of all in art schools and then in a girls' school, and we used to take our students to Cornwall every summer. If anybody in this room went on our Cornwall trip, do you remember the Cornwall trip? Wasn't that the best trip?
It was actually the best school trip ever, yes.
Yeah. And what was so exciting about it, I think, is we just did art all the time. It was fantastic. We used to give our students a sketchbook, and we used to give them tasks that they had to do, and they came back and they said it's like art boot camp. They absolutely loved it. They loved it. And you know, so this is the sort of thing we would do. I go to Cornwall a lot. I go to the beach a lot. I used to sail quite a lot. And again, it's grab moments. These are not perfect, brilliant paintings, but what they are moments in time. And I think that's a motif that I feel is very important. So the prints that I have on exhibition are about experiences, and one of those experiences of the prints is of a vase that's blue and white striped, and there are two prints, and the first one is called Breakfast in Highbury. And it's because one day I was having breakfast with a friend who's here tonight, and she had on the breakfast table a beautiful vase of flowers, and it's a memory, and it's being able to record it in some way and take it into the studio and do something with it. And that's very exciting when it's a starting point. And I think that's something I always used to say to my students: what you do is a starting point. Doesn't matter what the finished piece is. The most important thing is just doing it. So yeah, that was something that went wrong. So what? Doesn't matter. As I mentioned earlier that I worked in glass, and I just wanted to show you something from this book. I was asked to design the southwest entrance to Dorchester Abbey, and I'd done work for several churches. I've worked at Coventry Cathedral, I've worked in Christchurch Cathedral, and done a lot of entrance doors. And around the millennium, there was quite a lot of money for doing things like that. And so I had to think what I was going to do for Dorchester Abbey. So I spent a lot of time there, and I made some what are called trace monotypes, and I also did some paintings in the Abbey, and I decided to just work in blue crayon, brown paper and ochre. Why I made that decision, I have no idea, but I think probably the ochre was because of the very soft stonework. And I spent a lot of time in that building, and I got to know it really, really well. And I really enjoyed that time of just drawing the building, getting a sense of the architecture, and then I distilled it into some designs which the PCC and the DOC accepted, and I came up with some linear doors for the Abbey. I had to get it right. I absolutely had to get it right because I lived in Dorchester, and can you imagine what it would be like meeting someone who didn't like it? So I really did think very carefully about what I was going to do, and I urge you, if you don't know Dorchester Abbey, do visit it. It's a beautiful, beautiful church, and these are the doors that I did for that. So that's what provided the starting point for that commission. So this book is my garden, and every summer I go into my garden and I do some paintings, and these are quite messy, and it doesn't matter because I can just nip into the sink and wash up, but I really enjoy this time, and I do it in the evening. I do it when I've finished doing other jobs, and I don't know where these are going, but I do want to do something with these. So these, the medium is a fantastic ink watercolour, which is dead cheap, dead easy to get hold of, but I love it because it's so intense because of the ink. And then I put, if something's not working, I put white gouache on top, let it dry, and then I draw on top with the crayon. Yeah. And then the other thing I do sometimes is stick a bit of paper on. Why not? Why not? And this came about, a very kind friend bought me this beautiful yellow jug. I'd just come back from Italy, and we'd been having wine in jugs with it was just lovely. So again, it's pulling things together that you remember and you want to keep. Quite pops of colour. So you can see I am a colourist. I'm a colourist, and I enjoy pattern. One more page. So that's that book. And then finally, I thought I'd finish with this. So in the front window of the exhibition are two prints which I took from drawings that I did during lockdown at in the Botanic Gardens in Oxford. So this was called Red Devils, and it was an apple tree called the Red Devil. And I had an exhibition at Bedford School, and I needed to produce some paintings, some prints for it, but I was really restricted as to where I could go and what I could do, but I could go to the Botanic Gardens. So I went to the Botanic Garden, and they gave me permission to do these paintings when I was there. So this is how I work, this is where I get my ideas from. This is what I do. This is why I use such strong pops of colour. And the prints, when I go into the studio, I will take a sketchbook, but I don't slavishly work from it. It's a starting point. And when I finished a print, I've really enjoyed working on it, but I look forward to the next one. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you.